White House COVID-19 response coordinator Dr. Ashish Jha delivering closing remarks during the vaccine summit at the White House. Administration officials and company leaders from Moderna and Pfizer came together to discuss the next generation of vaccine design and manufacturing, which they hope will accelerate the development and production of more broadly protective COVID-19 vaccines. For more, I want to bring in ABC News' Zareen Shah, senior national policy reporter, and Flaherty, as well as ABC News medical contributor and emergency physician, Dr. Darian Sutton. Good to see you all. Thanks for being with us. And I want to start with you. We saw executives from pharmaceutical companies hold multiple panels to talk about the future of vaccines. I'm just curious what your biggest takeaways are.
Well, I think that Americans need to be aware of there are essentially two tracks of vaccines here. One is the vaccine that we're going to see hopefully by September, and this is an Omicron-specific vaccine that's already under development. What they're talking about today is a little bit more aspirational. We're talking about a vaccine that could potentially block all future variants so that the government doesn't have to play this game of cat and mouse. That is the goal. Of course, we heard today it's going to take two big things, money and clinical trials. So the smartest minds got together. They said, here are some of our ideas. Here are some of the things we want to tackle. But of course, it's all in the details and how much support are you going to get from the government and how much are you going to get from industry.
Yeah, two big question marks there. All right, Dr. Sutton, from the perspective of a doctor, what do you make of today's summit?
I thought it was a helpful outline of what to look forward to in the future. As Zareen was saying, some of these ideas, many of them are aspirational because there's a lot of unknowns, but just understanding the plan to get there. And you want to make a vaccine that is durable, that stands the test of time, and one that is flexible, that can treat and prevent infection of not only the current variants, but also the possibility of future variants. And there are some ways to do that within science. For example, targeting a different part of the virus that changes less, therefore providing protection that can keep going, but also understanding how we can deliver this vaccine in a more efficient way, finding technology to reduce the need for frigid temperatures that we need to store them at in order to transport, and the possibility of reducing the amount or dose that is given to patients that then allows for more vaccines to be available. So I'm hopeful that some of these goals will be met. And as Zareen was saying, this is going to take support, funding, and more research.
So, Zareen, the development of future vaccines will likely require additional funding from Congress. We've been talking about it, something that's proven to be an uphill battle so far for the White House. So what are the options here?
Yeah, Alexis, you said it exactly. I mean, not a whole lot. I mean, look, the truth is we don't even have the funding, as you just said, for the current vaccines, for all of them that we need for fall and winter. And of course, that's when we'll have an updated vaccine just to target that current variant. And a lot of the GOP, the Republicans, don't think that we need it. They feel like we've spent enough money. So that right there, that is the first hurdle. Now, of course, there could be other options to get at these vaccines, right? Like the commercial market, for example, the same way we do for other vaccines or other medications, through insurance. But the big issue there is that these vaccines, the COVID-19 ones, are incredibly coveted. I mean, you have countries around the world that have already placed many orders, and that makes it harder for companies to place those orders. They have less power in the situation. And then that second problem is the uninsured. Of course, driving down the spread, it means to get widespread up-to-date vaccines for everyone. And that's why, this issue is just so important.
And Dr. Sutton, there's a new poll from the Kaiser Family Foundation found 43% of parents with kids ages 6 months to 4 years old say they will definitely not get their child vaccinated. Remind us why it is so crucial for our youngest generation to be vaccinated.
Yep, that is certainly an unfortunate finding, as I'm experiencing it now, talking to parents of patients who they themselves may have been vaccinated, but are still expressing a lot of anxiety over getting their children vaccinated. And I completely understand that fear. I think it's really important to acknowledge that this vaccine has been tried and tested and proven safe and effective, and not only preventing hospitalization, but of course, preventing death. And you referenced an age group, 6 months to 5 years old. Given the Omicron variant initial outbreaks that we saw prior to the current BA.5, we saw a significant increase, almost a 4- to 5-fold increase in the rate of children being hospitalized secondary to this variant. So the risk, although is less compared to adults, it's not zero. So I would remind parents that the risk of COVID-19 still exists, and it's really important, if you haven't done so already, to get your child fully up to date on their vaccines. And if you have questions, ask them, but make sure you ask them to a provider who is trusted and experienced within the world of science that has gotten these vaccines to be here today.
And I want to come back to you because the CDC now estimates the Omicron subvariants BA.5 and BA.4 now account for 95% of new COVID-19 cases in the U.S. Despite that rise, though, vaccination rates across the U.S. have really been slowing down. So with the number of Americans vaccinating less and less, is a rollout of new vaccines really realistic?
Well, I think we already touched on two of the biggest challenges. One is money. So if you can't bring the vaccine for free to people who don't have health insurance, you're going to have a pandemic of the uninsured, essentially a pandemic of the unvaccinated. You know, I think the other thing with the hesitancy, if you were able to give people some consistency and tell them what to expect, is this going to be an annual flu shot? Is this going to be every 6 months? Hopefully it's less than that. Maybe it's an annual flu shot similar to that. Maybe it's even less frequent than that. I think people want to know what to expect. And if you get to that point, then you can roll it into some other shots. Maybe when kids are going back to school in the fall, it becomes less about will you take the COVID vaccine as it is. You go to your doctor, he gives you all the shots that you need, and then you move on from there. I think that predictability is what people need.
Yeah, excellent point. I agree with you there. Does this mean, Dr. Sutton, that we can expect differing vaccines to tackle specific variants, and then are we just going to be living with these strains going forward?
I think, unfortunately, this virus will likely be endemic to our community and around the world as it has taken a stable seat within communities, unfortunately, given the high rate of transmission. I think in the future, we'll be looking at vaccines very similar to how we look at flu vaccines. I think although we're aspirational with the hope of providing a vaccine that is durable, that stands the test of more than 1 to 2 years, I think it's more realistic to expect that we'll likely be getting vaccines updated like we do, for example, with flu vaccines. So unfortunately, I think that this is likely going to be a continued conversation as we continue to assess the risk and threat and also surges. And it's also important to acknowledge the importance of vaccine equity. As soon as this virus leaves this country, we see it travel around the world and unfortunately infect and harm countries who have limited access to no care to treatment of COVID-19 or prevention. So I'm hopeful that we'll not only acknowledge the need for vaccine equity in an international sense, but also fixing the fractured healthcare system that doesn't allow many to get the access and prevention that they need, and then reminding people of the benefit of vaccines.
All right, Dr. Sutton, Zoreen, and thank you all for being with us.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.